What's up, guys? This is Carter again with this week's 5-day run of CoinMaster TV. Welcome back Monday morning. I hope you're all doing great. Had a great weekend. I, for one, spend most of my time nerding out on this stuff, but it was nice to have a little break. And it was also nice to have a weekend where I wasn't clenching my fists and bleeding from my knuckles all the time. So that was a nice break. And what I wanted to do today is talk a little bit about what's going on, any particular changes, some things that I'm seeing. I want to talk about a couple of the strategies that I'm using. And then later this week, I'm actually going to provide a couple spreadsheets, or one master spreadsheet. And then I'm going to go through it and you guys can just have it. That really just lays out how I make these trades and how you determine sell prices and things like that. It makes it really easy. And I think that is really helpful. Some people have been emailing me about that. So look out for that, maybe on Wednesday or something. And lastly, I want to talk about a couple of things about the whole market that I had a really great conversation with a couple guys about what I think is where this is going. And I think that it might be just a good way to start this week as we see this unfolding, because over the next 3 months, the market we know today is going to be very different than the market we know in December, right? Which may seem like an eternity away, or it may seem very close, but what I can promise you is either way, it's going to be very different. So we'll talk about those three things. So it was actually pretty relatively uneventful over the weekend, with the exception of a few particular coins, which I'll walk through. But just starting off with the top level stuff, nothing too crazy. Now, obviously, we're just looking at the last relatively recent history here. I think that one of the big news is Dash. You guys may have seen this kind of go off. The big news behind Dash is that they finally got their app approved by the App Store. Which means that their app you can actually buy and sell and have a wallet inside the App Store. They had been having problems with that for a while, in terms of privacy, in terms of terms of service and stuff. So they got that in there. That's a big deal, both from user experience, but also just from a PR standpoint, from a credibility standpoint. So that's why you're seeing that. So I have a lot of experience in the app world, and what I can tell you is that this is great. This is one of those kind of news events. You can track the rank of that app in the App Store and give you a relative idea of how popular it is. You could same with things like the Jax wallet, which is an iOS app, or any of these apps. So that might be an interesting thing to track if you are an investor interested in Dash. If you're wondering how popular it is, I can give you a good proxy, and then just look back at the volume that it's selling on any of these exchanges, right? Poloniex or Bitfinex or Bittrex or whatever. Cool. The other thing that I was seeing today is that Monero is actually doing pretty well. Now, this is as you guys know, I'm a long-term holder, but this is the first time it's starting to show signs that it's breaking away from the traditional Bitcoin Ethereum market correlation. It's starting to have a little bit of a mind of its own. This may just be a one-day thing. I don't know, but I'm confident that at some point people are going to start to realize that Monero has something that a lot of other coins don't have. And I'll talk about that towards the end of this video. By the way, before I forget, we're almost up to 300 YouTube subscribers, which is unbelievable. I just want to say thank you so much for subscribing. And if you're not subscribed, make sure you do it. If you know anybody who would benefit from these videos, please feel free to share that with them. But this is awesome. I'm stoked that we could build a community around this. When you look at the rest of the charts, everything else, nothing popped too much except for OMG. So I think it's the OmiseGo, right? Over the weekend, it had a really big spike in volume, and we'll dive into this in a second. That was really interesting. That's kind of one of the latest ICOs. They've got an unbelievable advisory panel. It's basically everybody who's involved in Ethereum is on this. So they're getting a lot of attention right now, a lot of volume, a lot of price increase. And then Stratus is the other one, where Stratus actually dropped from a pretty good high, which isn't that crazy. But what I like about Stratus, even though it's going down, and I own a fair amount of Stratus, is that it's starting to differentiate itself from Bitcoin and Ethereum, just like Monero is. And that is really what I like. That is what I want to see. I want to start to see correlations. I want to see inverse correlations, because that allows you to hedge your bets. What I mean by that is that if you know that Bitcoin's going up, that means Stratus is going down or whatever. It's kind of like the stock market. You can buy a little bit of each one, so that if one goes up and the other one goes down a little bit, you can really start to break even, right? Like you don't screw yourself completely without having to buy things like options and derivatives. Now, if you don't know what this stuff is, that's totally fine. But it's great when you start to see inverted or non-linear correlations in any sort of equity like this. It just gives you more flexibility. It gives you more control over your overall returns. Like you're not beholden to 30 plus 30 down 30 a day or whatever. Litecoin's been doing its thing. But yeah, overall, that's what I've seen a couple technical guys like talking about Ethereum and a little bit and Bitcoin to a certain extent, right on the verge of a big breakout. It's called a flag formation. If you don't know technical trading, that's fine. I'm learning as I go. So if you like Ethereum, which I'm starting to come around on Ethereum, like I obviously own a ton of it, but I'm starting to think I might want to pick up a little bit more. Ethereum looks like it might have some legs. I'm not buying any yet, just for the record, but I am starting to look at it more closely. All right, let's jump over to Bittrex and just see what else has been going on. So Digibyte has been a big mover. Now, a couple things about Digibyte. I don't own any Digibyte. I'm in a couple of groups. I've talked to a couple people about Digibyte. Digibyte has a really bad reputation with certain communities in the crypto world. And the reason why is because apparently they used like some fake news or something to pump their volume, and then they came out and said it was like something about a very blatant use of false information to inflate the price, and that is why they've gotten a bad reputation. So I've stayed away from it. I haven't bought any, even though it looks like it's doing great. I don't know what's driving that volume increase, but if you're thinking about buying it, I can't give you. I don't know for sure. All I know is that there are a lot of people that do not like that coin, that company at all, because they don't trust them. So that's a data point. You can use it for whatever you want. Now again, this OMG stock, or coin I should say, not stocks. Let me pop this open. And so you can see this defaults to the 30-minute chart. Right about yesterday morning, it started to really pop. I mean, it was down to 25 on Friday, I think, if I remember correctly. Yeah, right around here, and it doubled. I mean, more than doubled in about 2 days. So the real question is this, is this people just trying to put their money somewhere? Is this a justified, whatever you call it? My personal opinion, for what it's worth, which isn't, it is what it is. I think that because we had a 2-day stretch where there wasn't a lot of volatility, like there wasn't a lot of places people could put their money, OMG just seemed like the natural place to put it. What I mean by that is that we have hundreds of thousands of people all over the world that are all buying and trading at any given time. And I think a majority of them are beginner, intermediate level, right? They are used to big, fast returns. Right? They want to see that 15% a day, which is, I mean, it's completely insane to think about that, but that's what people are kind of used to. And when the markets were going flat, as they have been the last 2 days, everybody's just looking for something to put their money into, especially now that the Bitcoin price came back up. A lot of people recoup their investment. They're saying, okay, what's a small cap, hot new thing that I could potentially put all my money into that will give me that massive Ethereum level return? And I think that OMG fit a lot of boxes for people because of the advisory board, because of the connection to Ethereum and Vitalik and all that. That's my personal thing. That's from the research I've done. So while this value, I don't think is any sort of like pump and dump situation, I do think that it's driven by a lot of people that just had extra money that didn't want to miss out on the potential next big thing. And right, as you see this graph just skyrocket, which is a very unnatural slope of a graph, a market curve. That's just, and the fact that it hasn't collapsed quickly, that's just a lot of people putting in there and saying, okay, I'm in, I want to ride this wave. So I'm going to do a little bit more research. Many people I know, smart people, really like what these guys are doing. But I'm not sold yet. And that may be the dumbest thing I've ever done, but I'm just not sold, and I'm not going to buy it until I am sold. So I'm going to keep it on my radar until, it does do it. Like I said, Straz came down a little bit. Basic attention token. This was interesting. I saw someone post, whoops, I was wrong. An article on Steemit, which if you're not on Steemit, go check it out, steemit.com. Go follow Coin Mastery CT. That's my page. And someone posted a really interesting spreadsheet that showed the coins that have not recovered from the crash last weekend the most. And basic attention token was one of them, right? They just have not. Zcash was another big one. They have not fully recovered last weekend. And so it was interesting to see this one pop because it had kind of all this stored pent up demand behind it. And then it got a bit of a pump, it looks like, because I've had a handful of people saw that data. And now you're seeing the sell-off coming. It'll probably end up sticking right around here. One thing about basic attention token, I do not invest in basic attention token. The reason why is that I don't think that they have enough money to fund the project. Their browser is awesome. I mean, it's great. It's like kind of like an ad blocker built into your browser. It's great. That's a tough business, but at least they have a great product. They only raised, I think, $30 or some odd million on their ICO. That is not nearly enough money to get the developers, to be able to have a marketing budget, to be able to get the partnerships, to really distribute that kind of product. You need heavy duty money, like hundreds of millions of dollars. And I don't think that they have that, nor do I think that they realize how much companies like Google and Apple, Microsoft are going to make it very difficult for them. So if you like it, they do have a product which is really cool. I just don't think the business and the company itself is set up to succeed. I think they underfunded themselves, unfortunately. Let me see if there's any other really interesting stories around coins this weekend. I don't think so. I mean, honestly, guys, it was really a relatively boring weekend, I mean, with the exception of a couple big winners, we're seeing a couple today. It wasn't that crazy. Civic had a massive sell wall right at 7,000 Satoshis, which was interesting. It was like 90 Bitcoin that had to get eaten through, but it got through pretty quick. It was up late last night watching that. So Civic, you guys know I like Civic, so I think it'll be interesting to see that one. Along the lines of what I was saying earlier, I think that you're going to see a lot of money coming into the altcoin space in the next 2 weeks. I don't know exactly which coins. I think it's going to be all of them, to be perfectly honest. I think everything is going to go up in the altcoin space because of this idea that people are going to start to get bored of these non-volatile days, and they're going to move into altcoins because altcoins will provide these. I mean, look at this, 25, 18, 30% each day. So I think you're going to see a lot of money moving into altcoins. If you are looking for which altcoins to buy, typically you want to buy the ones that are at low points in their price, right? So one that, I mean, Sia Coin is coming up now. And this is completely aside from the whether or not you agree or believe that they are that their product is going to work. So Sia Coin kind of does like what BitTorrent and storage does. It decentralizes Amazon Web Service type storage, so everybody's computer becomes part of the cloud server. But you know, this is the graph I showed you guys when I was looking at BitShares last week, which ended up, actually someone on YouTube commented they bought it and made like 20%, which is awesome, right? So if you look at some of these coins, you want to buy coins that are either at the bottom or they're on their way up, right? So that when all the volume comes in, you're in a very good position. So, you know, Sia Coin would be one. I don't love Sia Coin because it's got like a couple billion coins, and you know, it's hard to. You also want to see how the slope, right? So check and see what the top resistance point was. So this was 742 Satoshis. And you want to see what the bottom support level was, which is 295, give or take. That's only like 2.5 multiple versus something like, let me pull up Lumens, which is something I invested in. I don't know if I told you guys that last week. I think I did, but I bought some on that on Friday and Saturday, or Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Go to the same chart, right? One day, and you kind of get the same thing, right? You got the resistance up here at 3101, give or take. And then you get the support down here around 579. Now that's a 6x difference. Okay, like I'll take that any day of the week, because the technical trading is going to tell you that the ability to hit these targets is the same relative to the strength of the trading and volume. But this one's going to increase potentially 6x versus Sia Coin, which may only increase 3x, just based on this loose technical analysis. Like obviously this is 100% not pro technical analysis, but that's something to think about when you do this. That's why I picked something like BitShares. It was at the bottom of that, you know, that U shape, and it had a lot of room to grow. So when you're taking a look at what you're going to invest in next, I mean, you can really go at anything. I tend to like the stuff that has, 100 or more in terms of volume. So let's go back to page 2, and you could look at something like, like Waves is a good example, I think, where you look at Waves, and you remember you go to this 1 day candles, and it kind of has a little bit more of a bow shape, but you can see it hits the bottom and it's starting to come back up. Now you guys can go and look back at last week's video when I did similar analysis of this stuff. This is pretty top level macro, but you can already see these candles are starting to make their way up. It wasn't an immediate news headline, but they're starting to creep up. So make sure that you see one that's either at the bottom or it's on their way up. Measure how high it could go and make sure that that multiple looks good to you. Right? I tend to like the higher multiple stuff. Some people like the lower multiple stuff because it's less volatile and risky. It's really up to you guys on what it is you want. Now, the third thing I wanted to talk about today is really where we're going. And this is going to be an ongoing trend. And you guys know that the lens that I look through this market, which makes this channel different than most other channels, is that I tend to look at the people, right? The people that make the markets. That's how the decisions are made. I think the other side of the coin, which is, no pun intended, God, that was a bad joke, is this idea that of what the future is going to look like. Everybody is wondering, you know, what's the next big thing? How do I get those 1,000% returns? Blah, 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 blah. And I think that you got to think about crypto at crypto is going to turn into 3 pathways. It's starting to do this, but three different paths. The first path is the platforms. That means things like Ethereum, things like EOS or whatever you want to call it. Trying to think, like Stratus, right? These are blockchain technologies that are designed for everything else to be built on top of them, right? Platforms is one bucket. Second bucket is actual currencies. That's cryptocurrency. That is crypto that is designed as a measure of money and potentially as a form of transaction. When I think about currencies, I think of Bitcoin, I think of Monero, right? I think that it may be a couple more. If you go through Ripple's more of a platform, maybe Zcash, right? That's designed to move through. But I think that currencies are going to be their own silo, right? And that's one of the reasons why I'm betting big on Monero, because it's a pure currency. It doesn't have any other function except for like processing money, which is great. The third category of crypto in the future is going to be these apps, right? The actual apps that are built on the platforms. That's what a majority of these things are starting to become, right? That's what you're going to see with things like Coin to a certain extent, but with Status Network, with Basic Attention Token, library credits. I mean, these are all just civic. They're all very specific functionality, problem-solving applications that are put on top of a platform. Many of them are built on Ethereum. Some of them are built on Omni. Some of them are built on Bitcoin, whatever. But when you look at those three categories, my prediction, and the reason why is because this is how markets have worked for the last 100 years. This is how people, as institutional money, have distributed their money accordingly, and how typically it shakes out. The platforms will be kind of like the blue chips. It'll be slower and steadier growth. They will have massive growth. I think Ethereum and Ripple and all these ones that do win, that do get a lot of people behind them. It'll be slower but longer term growth. I think currencies, Bitcoin, Monero, Zcash, whatever else, the ones that get adopted by private citizens, by governments, by businesses, whatever, will also grow, but they will grow faster because it's going to be more of an asset class, and there'll be more money that just gets put into that, things like that. And the third bucket, which is these apps, is where you will see the huge 10,000, 100,000 X growth, right? Like crazy Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, AOL, like that level of growth, huge returns, but they're few and far between. It's very difficult to know. It's almost going to be like venture capital. And that is where it's going to start to become more like a democratized venture capital world, where it's not like the stock market where there's all this private IPO and institutional investing. It's going to be, you guys are able to get in at the ground floor, but it still will be a crapshoot. If you want to check out something cool, at least I think it's cool, go check out the 0x project. Whoops, I should say. It's 0xproject.com, like the number 0, the letter X, and then project.com. These guys are building a really cool thing that is kind of like a platform for trading. Now, I don't know 0x how well this is going to do. I mean, I think it's going to do very well. But they're building a whole world on top of these platforms. And this is very much in line with what Coinbase is trying to do. If anyone's not familiar, Coinbase, the whole like turning US dollars into Bitcoin for you guys, like a bank, that is only like step 1 and 2 of their major plan. Their big plan is to build a whole ecosystem of apps and payments and use cases using all of that digital currency. So companies like District X, or I should say, businesses like District X, are trying to create these foundational, these new worlds, these new networks that will power the quote unquote Web 3.0, right? So like Name Bazaar, Ethlance, Meme Factory, these are all apps that live in the district that run on you know, the 0x trading blockchain or exchange blockchain that use Aragon as the governance platform, all of which are Ethereum based apps. Now, if everything I said just sounded like complete jargon, that's totally fine. You don't need to worry about this stuff quite yet, but this is where it's going, at least on the app side. This is what people in Silicon Valley talk about. This is what the big investors are putting their money into, because they believe that this is the future, and these tokens, these coins that power this will be driving a big part of the future growth. So anyway, Monday thoughts. I think that I'm not going to get into too many trades. I honestly haven't bought anything recently. I'll obviously let you guys know when I do. I think if anything else, keep an eye on Civic. If it gets above like 8,500, that's interesting. That's kind of been where it's had a hard time getting through. I'm going to keep an eye on OMG. And also back to the main stuff. I mean, keep an eye on Ethereum. I think Ethereum could have a great week. I think Bitcoin could have a great week. No real danger on the horizon. Also, I think we got like a week until August 1st. So we'll keep it at that. Thank you so much, guys. If you have not already, please go subscribe on the YouTube channel. Make sure you hit that bell too, so you get notified when I put up videos. We do this Monday through Friday. And if you know anybody that would be interested in this, make sure you send them this video or the webpage or the podcast or wherever, and get them involved. And so thank you so much. I'm going to answer all the emails and comments you guys have been posting. So thanks again. And this is Carter Thomas with Coin Mastery TV. See you later.